By the 8th year of Heracles' penance, all glory had faded, applause had turned to silence. All that remained were the weight of his deeds and the guilt that rotted in his very soul. As Heracles waited at the gates of Tiryns, he keenly felt the passage of time. No onlookers coming to see the colossal figure in awe, no guards fearful of his presence. The world had moved on. The herald finally emerged alone, his features carved by time. But in his face, Heracles saw more than just years. He saw the slow erosion of purpose, youth, and hope, and with it, a mirror. He too was aging, caught in an endless cycle. Without pause, the herald declared the next task, designed to ensure his failure. Heracles was to sail with a battalion to the land of Thrace and return with the mares of Diomedes, the barbarian king. And so Heracles departed, sailing towards another impossible task, longing for the end of this torment, longing for peace and silence. But on board, Heracles met a young soldier whose eyes were full of wonder, uncorrupted by pain or fear. His name was Abderus. The two spent the entire voyage side by side. Perhaps Heracles saw something in the youth that he had long lost, a hopeful vision of the world that glimmered with possibility. Heracles vowed to protect him, no matter the cost. As the ship sailed through the bitter dark and a cold wind crept through the sails, Heracles wrapped the shivering youth in his lion skin cloak, as if doing so would shield him from the world itself. As Heracles and the soldiers arrived on the shores of Thrace, they saw a graveyard of a once divine city. The marble that once sang of heroes and gods now lay in dust, buried beneath huts, decay and filth. The barbarians watched from the shadows, their eyes sharpened by hate, their blades sharper still. Heracles refused to allow Abderus to take part in the battle ahead. He told him to stay with the ship, and reluctantly, the youth nodded. As Heracles and the soldiers journeyed into the city courtyard, King Diomedes stood like a mountain, crowned in cruelty, for this was no simple mortal, but the son of Ares, the god of war. Without hesitation, Heracles declared his intent to leave with the king's fabled mares, but to his surprise, Diomedes smiled. The king led Heracles through the city into the dark stables where the monstrous creatures were chained with iron. The mares waited in the dark, black as night, fed only on the flesh of the condemned. As Heracles dared to take a closer look at the vicious beasts, the king charged at him from behind with his sword drawn. But Heracles was more than ready. Bronze clashed in the dark, the two titans collided, crashing through the stable walls, and war was declared. Heracles and Diomedes fought like living gods, with death and blood swirling all around them. Eventually, the Greek soldiers with their tight formations prevailed, and Diomedes fell, exhausted and wounded, to the earth. Seething with anger, Heracles dragged the appalling king to a fate that he inflicted upon countless others, feeding him to his own horses. Showing no compassion for their master, the mares tore Diomedes from limb to limb, leaving only his crown behind as a hollow symbol of blood. As Heracles returned to the port with the 4 vicious horses in chains, the sight of Abderus warmed his heart, but the strain of battle left Heracles seeking wine and numbness over companionship. He instructed Abderus to stay with the ship and guard the horses, warning him not to get too close. But as Heracles departed, curiosity got the better of young Abderus. The mares, not sated by the meal of their own king, mauled the young soldier to death. As Heracles journeyed back sipping wine greedily by torchlight, The horror rippled through every fibre of his being at the sight of the fallen youth. Heracles emptied his lungs in a vicious scream, not at the gods who cursed him, but at himself. Another soul lost to Hades that he had sworn to protect. Heracles and the guards erected a tomb to the young soldier, and from the smouldering ashes of Thrace, he founded the city of Abdera in his friend's honour, knowing it did nothing to soften his guilt. The ship sailed towards Mycenae in solemn mood, with the horses bucking and writhing in their chains. Once on land, he mounted the ferocious horses to a chariot and rode as fast as he could towards Tiryns, casting dust up into the firmament. Spotting him in the distance, the city guards ran and scrambled to open the gates, seeing that Heracles was intent on crashing straight through. The chariot hurtled through the city streets, stopping in the courtyard below the king's balcony, where he looked on, shrieking with terror. King Eurystheus cowered on his balcony, clutching his knees like a child, and without a word, Heracles stepped down from the chariot, left the vicious mares behind, and turned his back on his cowardly cousin. Behind him, the mares rose to their hind legs, biting and screeching at the guards attempting to control them, but that was of little concern to him now. As Heracles walked into the sunset, leaving the shrieks of the city behind, he clung to the glimmer of hope that he once saw in Abderus's eyes. No matter the cost, he would honour those that he had lost by fighting with every ounce of will in his body, achieving what no man or god ever had before.